Yo, welcome back to another episode of Mailbag Monday by the Money Matters podcast. I am your host, Jack, joined by Bill and Dylan, my father, my chief of staff. Dad, how are you?
Excellent.
Dylan, how are you?
Excellent.
Amazing. We are recording on Sunday, May 12th, aka Mother's Day. So we do have to open up with a happy Mother's Day to all mothers out there, but in particular to the Bitcoin mom, my stepmother. There she is. Look at that.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, if you guys across Bitcoin, this will be released on Monday, but if you guys can all help me wish the Bitcoin mom a happy Mother's Day, it'd mean a lot to me and the whole podcast. Look at that. Amazing. Wonderful. Okay, so here's what we got for you guys today on Mailbag Monday. I said last week that there wasn't a lot of commentary on what we should talk about, and you guys came into the comment section pretty hard, which we love, and there's a lot of suggestions on what we should talk about this episode. Here's the way I'm going to handle it. Today, we're going to do dollar bill. So my dad's predictions and thoughts around the Bitcoin market price, how it's been trading, overall macro analysis, whatever's on his mind in regards to the markets. And then we're going to talk about the election and Trump mentioning, quote unquote, crypto, and the fact that dollar bill has also been very forward that crypto and Bitcoin is going to be a part of this election, and that Biden's taken a really aggressive stance. And now seeing that come true, I really want to get his thoughts there. Matt Corallo did come out with a piece about Bitcoin privacy, the fact that the protocol needs a lot of work, a lot of his concerns, which kind of coincides with some of your guys' interests. So instead of trying to go YouTube comment by YouTube comment and answer you guys, I think we leave that for the next week's episode. I'll get to some Q&A at the end of this, but then I think we should do a full-blown episode on Matt Corallo's thoughts, some of the wider developments of the U.S. regulatory situation, what's being worked on Bitcoin, how we're going to handle privacy concerns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How does that sound to you, gentlemen? Fair game? All right. Well, without further ado, Dollar Dollar Bill, y'all. What rap song is that from? It's a dollar bill, y'all. Dollar bill section. What's going on with the Bitcoin price? We are trading at 61,612. So we're chopping around, but trending a little down this episode. What do you think about BTCUSD?
Oh, I think I'm going to sound like a broken record, but no, I sold it on this date last year. The Dow was at 33,300. So at 39,500, that's up 18.5%. Gold, similarly, almost the exact same percentage. 2,000 a year ago, 2370 now, that's up 17.9%. Housing, similar gains. And against that backdrop, the cost of money, the federal funds rate a year ago was still under 1% and is now, what, 5.25%, 5.5%? So, I mean, I think, I don't know, when you look at everything's got double-digit gains, even as money has gotten 5x more expensive over the last 12 months. I do want to, you know, one of my consistent themes, don't make speculation any harder than it has to be. I'm trading from the long side. I don't see any reason to stop, and which, you know, begs the question, what would have to happen? You know, and I forget to mention, I'll throw in the fact that it's an election year too, and that the last time, you know, the monetary authorities tried to tighten in response to bad inflation data, they triggered a couple of bank collapses. So you got an election year, you got a clear case of asset inflation. I don't see any reason not to keep trading from the long side. What would have to happen to make that change? I would say, any of those markets roll over is going to cause, you know, me to rethink my approach, but I would say in particular gold. And gold, as you know, I have just never been able to trade gold from the long side. It was a very disappointing market throughout my career as a margin clerk. Gold year over year is up 17.9%, is a pretty strong signal that I think that markets are pricing in a lot of inflation. So of that scenario, I got to have scarcity. I love Googling, you Google how much gold there is in the world, and you get a plus or minus error of something like 22 million tons. I swear to God, the estimate, the rounding estimate, the range of how much gold there is in the world is probably about the market cap of the crypto industry, right? So you guys are storing value in something that we don't know how much of it there is. I don't know, pick, where do you guys want to store value? Stocks, gold, real estate. It seems Bitcoin is going to be by far and away. Oh, I like that stat. How much gold is there in the world? And you return an answer that's plus or minus 22 million tons of it. How much Bitcoin is there in the world? There is 19,700,206 and 1/4. Right? So where you guys want to store value? I know exactly down to the quarter of a coin where my family's wealth is going to be. Gold, real estate, the traditional stores of value, I think, are just going to continue to bleed out. And yeah, get long and stay long. I don't see anything that has changed in that scenario.
Get long and get paid. You know, it's funny. So Sailor has been talking shit about gold. I paused there for a second because he's kind of always talking shit about gold, but in particular recently, he's had some comments about gold that reminded me of you and made me laugh. He said, I've never met a billionaire that owns gold. I've never met anyone that owns $1 billion worth of gold. I've never met a billionaire that made $1 billion and thought, oh shit, I should take all this money and put it into gold. Which reminds me that you've said the same thing. Like, you, in your history of finance, you've never met anyone that's made money by owning gold or done well in some other field and then taken their earnings or proceeds or cash flows and poured it into gold, right? So the fact that gold is up like it is, it's just funny hearing Sailor do his interview rounds and hearing you talk about it over the last few months on this show.
Surprising. I'm telling you, that's one of the things about Bitcoin is Bitcoiners and gold bugs have a whole lot of overlap, right? A distrust of the financial system or wanting, basically to pull money out of where it can be inflated. So I would say that it's hard to find Bitcoiners that are gold skeptics. No, welcome. I think he's right. I mean, gold has just got a much lousier supply story. Obviously, Bitcoin, even a lot of the terminology, right? Mining and Litecoin is silver, Bitcoin's gold. I mean, they import a lot of the precious metal language and mindset. And I've always felt there's a lot of overlap. I mean, you go to a Bitcoin meetup and it was half of them were gold bugs, right? So welcome. I'm a longtime gold skeptic for really the supply side of the store of value problem. Like I said, if you Google how much of it there is, you get plus or minus tons of it. I know how my wealth is being stored. I know the supply schedule right down to 2140 or wherever. You guys know better than me. Just a better argument, soup to nuts.
Yeah, I mean, everything's a shitcoin compared to Bitcoin, as they say. It is the only money that we've designed and made with our hands. We engineered it to be perfect, which I don't think people take credit for. Gold, we found it. It was the best at the time, but we actually built this one. So, like, why?
It's giving pro Bitcoin interviews. I think that's great and welcome aboard, but doesn't it beg the question of like, why? What are all the rest? What are all the rest of traditional finance that is literally watching a bunch of us create $1 trillion industry and not, getting on board? We're finally starting to get the Fidelities, right, and the BlackRocks and stuff. But no, it's like I said, two ways. Whenever I hear those news, you think, great, universal asset, smart people starting to figure this out. But then you go, why weren't they smart people figuring this out 6 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago? It's kind of frustrating to wait, I guess.
But I agree with you. I don't think we're going to wait for too much longer. I've publicly stated that I think Bitcoin's price will be $250,000 to $1 million per coin at some point in the calendar year 2025. And so I think that going from $1 trillion asset will very quickly be a $5 trillion asset. And that, to me, I agree with you. I don't think anyone's going to sit around and wait and watch. We've achieved milestones that there's enough validation that this is real. And so I just don't think that level of capital can be deployed into a new asset class overnight. But I don't know, define overnight, like not by tomorrow, but by next year, which is kind of overnight. I do expect it to be as overnight as it can get. And because of the same things you're talking about, I agree. I think anyone with a brain at this point knows Bitcoin's not going away. In fact, it's what's the opposite of not going away is yeah. So
well, how many coins does the protocol generate post halving, right? 450? 450 new Bitcoin is generated right by the software every day. And
sure.
right, if you just take ETF demand, organic demand, I think you're well north of 450. So we're pricing this market. Existing holders are pricing this market. And, I think I put existing holders into 3 broad buckets. They're different sizes, but 1, 2, 3 is lost, forgotten, or Satoshis that are never going to come back to the market again. I don't know how many estimates are, maybe 5 million coins there. There are the old school hodlers that have done their estate planning and have it in multi-sig relationships spread across hidden in safety deposit boxes. Those things can come to the market, but it's going to be kind of hard. It's going to take a while to get them there. Yeah, 200 grand, maybe I'll go dig out, maybe I'll go recover a Trezor and get my 2 of 3 multi-sig across my family, right? But that's nothing I can do in a snap. And that leaves the other third, which is, I think, how we are pricing Bitcoin. And that is a tight supply-demand situation. It really is. I mean, just in anything that happens, nation-state adoption, ETF, success stories, or like, the customers you deal with, more celebrity endorsements. Who knows? I want to be paid in Bitcoin. I'm tired of getting the melting iceberg treatment, melting ice cube treatment, excuse me. Yeah, I don't think it's going to take much from here. I think this market, if I were pricing skews, pricing is supposed to distribute normally, but a skew would be an abnormality on either side. Like an asset market might skew to the downside because the stock market can and has dropped 20% in a day. It has never rallied 20% in a day, right? So event risk tends for asset markets skew down. I'd say the scariest side of this distribution is upside, because you say name any of those things: nation state adoption, major retailer adoption, continuing liquidity problems, and regular old CPI price inflation are all going up, cutting my way. So
yep. Well, we agree, and I think the listeners really loved the we'd rather be right than entertaining. So a lot of it's repetitive, but it's just the truth. We're not here to entertain. We don't get paid by sponsors. I'm not selling you guys vitamin water. I'm just being honest. I think it's get long, get paid. I personally think Bitcoin's probably going to chop around till, I don't know, July, August, because that's the election, which we'll talk about in a second, isn't going to ramp up until the fall either, right? Like the world kind of takes the summer off. In my experience, I've never seen the Bitcoin react to a halving right away. It usually takes a few months. Traders, big money goes on vacation. So I wouldn't be shocked if this thing kind of put everyone to sleep over the next 2, 3, 4 months. And then come August, September time is when things really started to get fun and hectic and active, and some serious price action and new highs and stuff. That's my prediction.
I agree and I disagree. I mean, I people that say that look at the past to kind of position through how this market reacts to a halving, there just haven't been enough of them. And the market is however many halvings there had been, it like I said, didn't even have a monetary value for the first couple of years of the protocol. And really, I would say by the time it started to hit financial market radar is more like 2013, 2014, right before. So how many halving? How does this market typically react to halving? I don't think you've had enough of them. And you certainly haven't had enough with this market being as mature and, with as many on ramps now and much more regulatory clarity. Remember, the first halving, we didn't even know if it was capital gains tax treatment or ordinary income tax treatment. We didn't know if it was legal in, like, China bans Bitcoin. I mean, there was, I think, so I don't think that you've got a lot to learn from looking at market behavior over past halvings. I think we're kind of in uncharted territory.
Yep. Agree. Agree. Okay. Well, I'm going to take that opportunity. I just brought up the election to parlay it into the main topic for this episode is not only the upcoming U.S. presidential election, but now Bitcoin's right in the middle of it. And this would be maybe news to the world or is news to the world, but it is not news to this show because Bill Mallers Jr. has been calling that for a long time. I'm going to try and TLDR your thoughts just to get your reaction to see if I've got it right. And then I'd be curious for you to expand. But you thought that Biden administration had been particularly aggressive to not, like, I think your direct quote was, not necessarily the cigarette industry or the gambling industry, which is, if you want to manipulate public behavior, consumers' behavior on a specific bad thing, like, hey, I want you guys to stop smoking cigarettes, so I'm going to tax cigarette sales out the wazoo, like they tax cannabis or something. But for capital formation in just overall markets or saving through unrealized capital gains or technology and finance with crypto, you thought they were being unnecessarily aggressive and that this was going to be a big vital piece of this upcoming election because there's so much money and wealth and innovation and technology bundled into Bitcoin and financial markets that these people were not going to be ignored. And it was only a matter of time before the election became in part about who's pro-Bitcoin, who's not. And it took about 30 days for that to seemingly become true. It seems like Trump has started taking pro-Bitcoin positions, pro-crypto positions, and he's not very articulate about them. To be clear, it doesn't look like he knows what he's talking about. It looks like what he's trying to do is take the other side of Biden, which, to your point, was just so aggressive. It was unacceptable. Because you've also, growing up, you've also told me stories about my grandfather, so your dad, in that at a certain point, financial markets just won't tolerate politicians. Like, it was something about certain taxes where my grandfather would say, if they raise taxes a little bit more, then the financial markets are going to react way more aggressively. So I'd be curious for you to talk about just how markets react to politicians overreaching, because that's kind of cool, in my opinion, to hear and to see that you knew immediately, like, oh, Biden's gone too far. And it was like not even a month, Trump's like, hey, I'm pro crypto. I was like, wow, like, how the fuck did you know that was going to happen? So I don't know. Did I get that right? What's your take on all of this? Is this what you expected? What's going on?
Yeah, no, if there's any analogies, as when the Chicago exchanges were coming up, yeah, we frequently had to battle with politicians, and one of the things that they would try, like I said, they'd use all sorts of different techniques. One of the best, I thought, was swapping employees. That senior would, I'll train your guy and you train my guy, and so not only do you guys understand what it is we're trying to do and why we need the banking industry, but I've also got a friend, right? I got a buddy, I got a phone number I can call. And so they really worked hard to integrate that, but their real trump card was, because every once in a while, Illinois is broke. They wanted transaction taxes. And we said, okay, we'll go to Indiana. I mean, what's the problem? Going to Indiana, right? No, there were serious discussions about how to make that a credible threat, or we're going to get taxed out of this. And do you guys have infrastructure? How about highways? How about public transportation? I mean, how many clerical workers need an L ride? How about any of the infrastructure it takes to support, an international exchange like that is tough to do it. The great thing about, this industry is it's all virtual. So I don't think you would have any problem relocating. You tell me, if this government does want to double the tax treatment and send the IRS audit or pretty much audit anybody who's a Bitcoiner, I think I would expect, again, you tell me, I'd expect it's an easier exit than we had when we were trying to battle, the city and the state. Our battle, this industry's battle against Treasury and Gensler and Warren and stuff, I think is pretty easy. Nothing wrong. I mean, El Salvador looks like a beautiful place to be. That's how I would predict it. That if our pushback, the industry's pushback, and we're doing, we love those guys, that have tried to get a lobbying industry going for crypto. But our best, I always think our best trump card is leaving.
Yeah. What do you think? So if government, whether it's existing administration or newly elected president comes into office, what do you think that does to the price? How do you think the market reacts to a U.S. government that's pro-Bitcoin? Do you think the thing just explodes? I mean, people are always a little wary that government would ever have any relationship to Bitcoin because in many ways it is the literal separation of money and state. But I don't know. I mean, El Salvador has clearly benefited tremendously from Bitcoin and found ways to support it in interesting ways. What's your take on a pro-Bitcoin United States government?
I think it's sharply bullish. Well, it's almost inconceivable. Since you learn the word, since you first read the white paper, the government has been after you, right? So at first it's going to be a culture shock. But yeah, no, I'm trying to go, what industry has had like day-night treatment? Maybe, Carter, Reagan, like different approaches towards an industry that I just don't have any analogy that can help with what if you wake up in November and we have a pro Bitcoiner in the White House or Treasury or something like that. I have no idea what that looks like.
Yeah, well, let me I'm gonna try and find. Let me try and position a question. It's gonna be a longer-winded one, but I'm really curious your take because I don't know if I were government. I guess is what I'm trying to think about. What I would do. I mean, a government has asked for my advice, and we saw how that went, right? So, but for the U.S. government, I guess my point is, one, I can't believe in hindsight they approved the ETF because it looks like the markets, understanding what you say about how markets react and vote in favor for political moves or political biases through market behaviors, right? Like they will sell off if they will crash the S&P 500. Everyone will sell off and make it blood in the streets if they don't like some political decision, right? Or they don't like, right? Markets tell government exactly how they feel through market behaviors. To me, seeing how much ETF inflows, this wasn't like a successful ETF or, oh, wow, I thought it was going to be worse. It was the most successful ETF launch by an order of 10 or something like that. And to me, it just kind of, it says that the market wants everyone to know we like Bitcoin, right? Isn't that what, if in language, in English language speak, Wall Street is saying, we like this thing, don't fuck with it. Don't ban it. Don't tax it. Like we like it, and don't touch it. Leave it alone. That was my interpretation of that. Which then, if I'm then in US government and for whatever reason they approve this thing, what they should have never done if I was looking to, I mean, Bitcoin is an exit. And if the building's on fire and there's an exit door, where do you think people are going to go? And the fact that they accepted this ETF and let Wall Street, now everyone knows Wall Street loves it. Larry Fink loves it. Fidelity loves it. There's serious capital is the most successful one ever. If you're US government, now what do you do? Because there's the one approach of like, yeah, they're going to ban it. They're going to this, they're going to that. But now it's pretty practical that this thing could very well be trading in hundreds of thousands of dollars per coin very soon. And if you're a policymaker, you almost have to get out ahead of that, right? Because what you can't do, in my opinion, is if Bitcoin were to go to $250,000 tomorrow, I think you have serious questions being posed to government, being posed to the Fed, and saying, hey, what the fuck is going on here? Like, the dollar is clearly extremely inflationary. Is this thing collapsing against this Bitcoin thing? You know, is there merit to the death of the dollar if the government's stance and opinion is what it is today? So you either have to get extremely aggressive and try and lock everyone in bars, shut everyone down, tax unrealized like Biden, or it seems like what Trump is building is an actual pro stance and saying, yeah, Bitcoin's up to 200K because I like Bitcoin and it's good for America. And actually, we'd be open to holding it. Or something like, actually, we think it should be part of the education program. We think universities should have Bitcoin courses, you know, because I think that they have to find a way to justify it existing and being huge. Because at this point, I can't believe now in hindsight, they let the ETF through. Because now at this point, Wall Street's said, we're huge fans of it too. And if you guys even were to take the ETF away at this point, we're going to go find exposure elsewhere. Like, we like the orange coin. So I don't know. I was reading some tweets on Twitter, and the tweet goes, assume you're a policymaker at the Fed or in the executive branch, and you believe that Bitcoin is likely to continue rising to the point where it's possibly in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, where the headlines are screaming and the public starts asking uncomfortable questions about what it means in terms of inflation, our national debt, the future of the dollar, etc. You understand that in this type of scenario, Bitcoin's role as a highly visible financial canary would have a psychological impact on the markets and possibly even a restrictive effect on policy, especially monetary policy. As a policymaker, what do you do? Wait until the pain point is reached, or do you get out ahead of it now? So I don't know. What's your take on that? Do you think that this pro Bitcoin stance is not only because Trump's trying to win the election, but also because, like, I mean, when this thing prints $250,000 price, as government, how do you justify that?
I mean, the government. I think one of the really fun characteristics about watching the way Bitcoin interacts is it's really, if you'd like I said, you asked me as soon as you understand Bitcoin and go, where's it going to have its biggest economic impact? I'd say online retailers. That seems to be kind of what, I mean, who's got more friction with the pain in the ass banking industry than trying to sell something online, right? You have to protect that data and pay their fees and chargebacks and everything else. But yet Bitcoin has not had the very much penetration in online shopping. Instead, it's had penetration in places like El Salvador, or as, you know, an investment option, an ETF option. I would have thought retail adoption comes well before ETF adoption. So I mean, I think that's been I think we've kind of been consistent on that. Once you spill universal acid, you know, two things are going to happen. It's going to affect everything. It's going to affect your next presidential election. It's going to affect how you shop and how you're taxed and everything. However, it's going to do that in a way that is not intuitive, and it's going to, right, work its way into issues in really hard ways to predict. So, right, to torture my analogy, I'm sure that, you know, when Darwin wrote his Origin of Species, he did not think that it would be challenged in a Tennessee courtroom, right? I mean, what did one have to do with the other? But once universal acid gets out there, it's going to disrupt the education system wants a new financial paradigm like Bitcoin. It's gonna work its way into your IRA account, your banking, the Fidelities and BlackRock. It's just going to do it in a way that's really hard to predict. I did not think we would be talking about Bitcoin in a presidential election. I thought rather, like I said, we would be talking about it at an Amazon shareholder meeting. But here we are.
I am slowly, or maybe quickly, I don't know, coming to the opinion that this upcoming election is going to be one of the catalysts and narrative drivers for this bull run. Because I'm not arriving at that because like, oh, well, Trump sold me that he's been a Bitcoiner this whole time. He's probably running a node in his basement. That's not why I feel that way. I'm just trying to picture what they're going to do, because I'm now of the opinion that they have to do something. If this thing does go to a multi-trillion-dollar asset class and continues to outperform everything else and just crush the dollar, it looks like monetary debasement expressed in an asset. That's what it looks like. So what I'm trying to articulate is that it looks like if there's a leak in the ship, right? If there's like a hole in the boat, it looks like the hole, like, oh, that's where the water's flowing out. Is it looks like, you guys want to see how bad monetary debasement is? Look up a Bitcoin chart. That's how bad it is.
I know, and there are probably people that are better at tracking, M2 money supply numbers or liquidity gauges, but I mean, just start where you start. Like I said, what was your government's response to a global pandemic? Well, they mailed you out a stimulus check. Okay, what are they going to do the next? And it worked, right? What are they going to do the next time this economy hits a slowdown, recession, anything? Well, we got that tool in our toolkit. We never had that one before. We went through some bad recessions. And I don't remember the federal government ever mailing me out a rent check, right? That's a new technique, but all in service to what do you do with an unpayable debt? What would you do if you have amount of indebtedness that's unpayable, right? You got two choices, default and debasement, and default is not an option for the world's reserve currency. It can't be. So you are gonna have to see debasement. That's going to manifest itself in higher fixed asset prices. So I'm looking at real estate, gold, all going higher. But who got the strongest fixed asset argument is clearly Bitcoin.
Yeah, I just don't know what they do about it. I like
from a policymaker standpoint, you asked the question like, what do you do? Do you get out in front of it, or do you try to stop this thing? And the fact to me that Wall Street has adopted this in such a positive way, that was the only thing holding back, in my opinion, a logical policymaker from switching a position to get in front of this. Because I think it's important to acknowledge Trump switched his position. Now he is in favor of this, and to your point, what it looks like, trying to get in front of it. But that begs the question, why? Why now? Is it because of Biden, is so against it? And I'm sure that's a strong factor. But the demographic of quote unquote crypto users and the demographic of people that vote are like immensely heavily correlated, especially for the younger demographic of people. And you have mentioned a quote in the past, which was when voice is no longer sufficient, exit becomes an option. Becomes the only option. When you cannot get across your point in a way in which that inspires actual change from the policy level, people leave. And you're starting to literally see a mass exodus of companies, crypto companies from the US. Mm-hmm. People are exiting. And I think Trump is acknowledging the fact that, okay, we have innovators exiting. I have a young, untapped demographic of people that actually vote and care about this stuff. I'm gonna get in front of this thing. Oh, and by the way, who's gonna be happy about that? BlackRock.
Well, who's happy? That's what I go. You want me to risk my career and throw myself and defend? Who am I defending? Jamie Dimon. I love the fact that if you want to personify traditional finance's hatred for crypto, it would probably be the Chase man, or it would probably be Jamie Dimon, right? Yet his bank trades it and his kid is long, right? Is his daughter long Bitcoin, and he's got an active cryptocurrency trading desk. So, I mean, come on, how seriously do we want to take that you guys are going to fall on your sword for Liz Warren and, right, try to keep this flat earth theory going for a little bit longer when your own bank is making markets and your own company's making markets and your own children are long? That's about as big a victory for the protocol that I can think. That's better than a court victory, right? The fact that you guys can't even keep Bitcoin out of your own house.
Your money managers are collecting fees again. It's a win-win-win on every side. Getting in front of it to me seems
all
like
the money. Listen to what they do, right? Now it's coming out of their mouth when they're in front of a congressional panel. No, I think, and here we go with a chipping away through the election cycle too. That's huge in my mind.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I think of Bitcoin again, like it's an expression of fiat debasement. Maybe another way of articulating it's an alarm bell, in my opinion. Yeah, alarm bell in that, the current system relies on no alarm bells. They rely on irresponsible government spending and currency debasement to cover up their irresponsible spending. And you're not allowed to know about it. It's very hard to track it and to understand it. But if there's something that's so violently, like, I don't know, alarm bell, like the bat signal in the sky, the best expression of that everyone has access to, those aren't allowed, because then everyone's going to know, oh, the siren's going off, we got to evacuate the building, like, something's on fire. And so that's why I just think, and maybe Trump isn't at this point yet, maybe he is, we'll never know, but I do think that it's bigger than that, bigger than trying to collect votes. I do think that if there is an alarm bell going off, everyone that's in the building is going to look around and go, is there a fire right now? And the government has to have an answer to that. It can't be like, a fire? Oh, do you mean the one in the basement? No, turn around, because then everyone's going to leave the building and run, right? And run into Bitcoin. And that is a disaster. So I think that they have to say, no, we're fans of Bitcoin. And yeah, we acknowledge it. We're fans of it. Oh, yeah, we weren't fans of it, but that was because fucking Biden, that guy couldn't even ride a bike. I've always been a fan of what I've never had a problem with Bitcoin, and we should teach it to our kids. And didn't Brian Armstrong found his company here, and Jack Dorsey's here, and we've got all. So if there's Google and Amazon and Facebook, we're all founded here for the internet. Well, all the Bitcoin companies are in America too. We might as well just own some of it. I do think that I think that the best approach might be a pro stance at this point, is my more broader, because it would be so catastrophic if this thing went to $500,000 and they weren't on its side, because then that's just an alarm bell, the expression of there's a leak in the boat. Everyone's then the pressure is going to be on of like, what about our federal deficit? What about inflation? I don't know, which makes it interesting about policy, because if Trump is pro Bitcoin, or I don't know, everyone was asking why we don't give Kennedy any credit. I don't have an opinion or preference on any of these Muppets. Let's say Kennedy gets elected. Fine. Is that also going to change their stance on how, like strikes regulated? I have no idea. Are they going to be softer towards that? They're going to want to promote maybe more tech innovation and allow companies to build and ship features and get licenses quicker and stuff. I don't know. That's how I'm thinking of it, a little bit more meta than getting votes. That makes sense. As Bitcoin's an alarm bell, and one that everyone can see, everyone has access to. I mean, you download an app, you can get it in 20 seconds. Download Strike, get it in 20 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, at what price of Bitcoin does it become a national defense issue in terms of like a global arms race to acquire more of it? I could tell you that at a price of $1 million, I certainly don't want Russia and China to own more Bitcoin than the United States does. That would be disastrous, right? For like a global outlook. As an American, probably not disastrous for Russians. But
now the question then becomes, well, just because they've acknowledged the alarm bell and are pro the alarm bell, they still have to deal with the fact that there's a thing that perfectly captures their irresponsible spending and currency debasement to cover it all up, which they rely on heavily, like with war and stuff. So what they're going to do about that, now that is entirely different. That's the whole end game of like how is the world going to adopt Bitcoin in full? Doesn't that kind of imply a lot of stuff that goes on today is going to have to cease to exist? Nobody knows the answer to that. You can sit around a bonfire and speculate on it. But I am curious if what we're witnessing is the US realizing, well, and it goes all the way back to, Satoshi game theory that people love talking about. And, a lot of what makes Bitcoin work and successful is the game theory, is the US realizing, well, it actually might be in our best interest to become pro Bitcoin as opposed to stand in its way. I think that became a reality when the ETF got approved, which again, like in hindsight, we may look back in hindsight and realize that, the end of Keynesian garbage as we know it, one of the pivotal points was when the ETF got approved. We may look back and be like, wow, that was when Wall Street was able to cast their vote. That was when the political US election decided that it was better to get on its team than in its way. But yeah, that's what I think we might be witnessing, to be honest. And when Bitcoin, I wouldn't be shocked if Bitcoin is 250K and Trump's like, I told you guys, I told you. Matter of fact, I have some. I don't know.
I invented it.
Yeah, I'm Satoshi. Yeah. And who knows how far this goes? Like, I mean, I've been seeing talks on pardoning Ross. So who knows where this can go and what this means for, cypherpunks, regulatory, US strategy. I mean, this has really, really, really profound impact and potential if what we're saying is true. So we'll see. I do think, though, that, as much as I think Bitcoin's going to, go to sleep this summer because the world kind of goes to sleep this summer, the election doesn't really heat up this summer either. But I do think that traders are now going to be watching Trump, right? I think if you care about BTCUSD, every single time the guy speaks, at this point, you're going to be curious. And because of the network effects and the economies of scale with Bitcoin and the openness of it, I think he's going to get a Bitcoin question now every single time he talks, because all of us are Bitcoiners. You know how many closeted secret Bitcoiners there are, and the biggest companies in the world or the biggest governments in the world. I mean, everyone's got some sats somewhere. Bitcoin's being adopted like the internet as far as adoption curve and numbers. There's hundreds of millions of supposed Bitcoiners out there. I mean, maybe, I don't know what you quantify as that. Like, is that just having a Coinbase account? Is that actually running a node? You can argue the definition and the semantics, but I think he's going to get Bitcoin questions consistently. I think the market's going to start reacting to him, and traders are going to start watching everything the guy says. And come September, I really think that if Trump starts leading in the polls and he's cheering Bitcoin on, I'm telling you, you guys think I'm crazy, $1 million Bitcoin, it depends how much they're going to debase this thing. And it depends on the election outcome and stuff, but it's just really not the craziest thing in the world anymore to me. It's not.
I like it. The other thing I always get curious about, because I'm from the financial industry, but you guys is how you guys, prior to Bitcoin, how did you guys think money was created? Did you think it's kind of like, because, right, it's kind of like I bought a book on the Federal Reserve once. I think I made it to chapter 2, but it's kind of like the movie 300, right? Where you got to climb a mountain and go to these old people and in order to get permission about whether you can declare war or not. It's kind of like that. There's an 8 or 10 or 12 old people who haven't had a job in ages, sequestered, and only recently publish their minutes. They didn't even used to publish their minutes. You would just have to intuit from their open market operations what they had agreed to do. But now you got a little bit of lag that'll at least tell you what interest rate they're targeting or what numbers they're actually looking at. But that's progress. But yeah, that, and like I said, so contrast the way Sparta ran the place to the way, very similar to the way the Federal Reserve runs the place, is contrasted with the way Bitcoin runs the place. That my monetary policy is taped to my wall. I know it all out to 2140. And I don't know, I think your generation that grows up with a little more cynicism towards government than certainly than baby boomers did, is going to be, that's just going to be a natural. I think it's going to integrate. I'm not looking for any big tipping point number. Like I said, yeah, Fidelity, BlackRock, regulatory clarity, El Salvador are all, benchmarks along the way. But I don't know. I don't know that we're going to get the one big, now Bitcoin is accepted because we elected, Ramaswamy or something. That'd be nice, but it probably just more of a slow seep.
Yeah. I have a funny story. I don't know if I've ever told, but as far as like my generation or growing up, how did I think money was created? So in high school, it was hard for me to describe what this was. It was like I had a period, so a class, a 40-minute class where we would be able to, as a group, kind of ask questions to specific experts. So if you had a question about economics or finance or history or something, and everyone would, what category do you want to ask questions about? There would be like a tutor or a mentor. And I'm sure these kids were like NU, Northwestern University grads. I grew up on Northwestern University campus. So I had an economics question, and I went to the economics and I wrote it on a piece of paper, and you hand it and the guy reads it. And my question was, I said, if there's only so much money, isn't it that for every single rich person, there's a poor person? And what I wrote on my question is, if let's say there are $10 that exist in the world, if I have 8, that means the other guy can only have 2. And so doesn't that mean that for every rich person, there's a poor person, and for every dollar gain, that's a dollar lost to someone else? And the answer I got was a bunch of bullshit, right? The answer I got was, well, it's actually far more complicated than that. There isn't $10 in the world, and there's borrowing and lending and credit and banking. And I remember being a high school kid and being like, well, that just doesn't make any fucking sense at all. I was just doing math. I was like, okay, if there's $10 in the world and there's 4 of us, either we all are worth the same amount, or for someone that's being richer, you're taking money away from someone being poorer, right? Like, and I was trying to make pretty intuitive assumptions on creating economic value, and it was just a very interesting time. I'll never forget that, now becoming a Bitcoiner, looking back, and the guy being like, well, it actually is really complicated. And that's not how it works at all. There is no fixed amount of money. So I don't know if like kids like my age growing up had a similar experience or intuition, but I was always kind of curious on like thinking from first principles. Like, well, this doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But
would you answer that question now if a high schooler asked you
that? As I would say, the money supply isn't fixed. No, that's not how it works, but it doesn't work that way because there isn't a fixed amount of currency for dollars. It is
non-representative, backward thinking, institutional. Backward looking, right? I mean, anytime they make adjustments, they typically are looking at last quarter CPI data or employment data or stuff. That's the other almost impossible thing to do. Even if you think, right, your monetary authorities are really good at what they do, they're basing their decisions on economic data that is going to change dramatically in the coming months, right? I have been in small business all my life. The Department of Labor has never called me and asked whether I added or eliminated jobs last month. I don't know how, but they do. They take a sampling, but the hard data, the only data that's survey data. That's telephone survey data, but things like tax returns, but that, that's more quarterly or even annually, business licenses. So it takes a long, but they got to make policy decisions, every 6 weeks. So I don't think the numbers are any good. I think the Council of Elders does remind me of how Leonidas ran Sparta, right? I mean, there's a council of elders that haven't had a job in a generation are going to set this country. I mean, it's just crazy. And the more fresh air, the more guys like Ramaswamy's and there or that can at least influence the dialogue. Like I'll take it. The fact that we're at least talking about cryptocurrency in an upcoming election. It was the first in my memory was Jared Polis accepting Bitcoin donations in 2014 for governor. Is that what he is? Mayor? Congressman?
He was a
congressman in Colorado. And me and every other Bitcoiner, I chipped in, right? Good. We'll get you guys, get some politicians on our side. And that was 10 years ago. Now it is on the debate stage for the next presidential election. I'll take that's probably faster progress than we thought. Like I said, retail progress, online retailer. I have no idea why they have not embraced this, but I know why politicians are embracing it, right?
Yep. Okay. Well, I think we wrap this up with a quick Q&A. Maybe. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good. We got a ton of comments in the YouTube comment section of our last episode. So thanks for asking questions there. We're going to go with a question from Bill St. Pierre. Dollar Bill St. Pierre asked a lot of questions, but the one that I am the most interested in hearing from you about is what projects in Bitcoin right now excite you the most?
eCash. I'm just excited about it as a privacy solution. It's not perfect. There's a trust model with these federated mints where you're trusting the custodian. But as far as privacy on the internet, electronic cash, I'm super excited about it. So we'll see where it goes, but that would be my short answer is eCash. And I know I'd referenced before, there's a lot about Lightning and Liquid and eCash and Fedimints, and there's probably a whole episode we can do on the current state of Bitcoin development, what's going on with the U.S. regulatory crackdown, and what Matt Corral is talking about. So I think we'll save that for a full episode. But for the short Q&A, I'd say eCash.
eCash, not ordinals.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Keep it there.
Cool.
Is that the only one? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up another Mailbag Monday. The comments and all the feedback we value. We really, really appreciate it. We hope, I know a lot of you guys are interested in the upcoming election. A lot of you guys are Americans. And I think the American election probably has impacts all over the world, right? I would assume as much. So hopefully that was interesting and exciting. Let us know. Like, comment, subscribe. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're getting up there slowly but surely, baby. So we really, really appreciate it. And as always, every single week, no matter what, we'll see you guys next Monday. Anything else, gentlemen? No.
See you next
week. Thanks, guys.
Dad, I didn't even notice. Is that an Essentials hoodie?
Yes.
Wow, swagged out. I didn't even.
Where did this come from? I didn't remember. Christmas?
That place on State Street, downtown Santa Barbara, who bought it. Remember?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, very
Dollar
good.
Bill's trying to appeal to the younger audience with that one. We like that.
Cool. All right. See you guys.